Alright lads, welcome to my Mythic Sisters of the Moon commentary kill video where I go over my talent selection, trinket selection and legendaries and just basically how I approach the fight from a progression standpoint, and of course how you can try and maximise DPS. So trinket selection, I'm going to be going for Convergence of Fates and Umbral Moonglaves. Moonglaves there's a good couple of opportunities for cleave, and Convergence of Fates is your best in slot trinket, and you're not going to be holding Battlecry for any significant amount of time, so it's really good here. Legendary selection, I'm going for the Helm and the Execute Ring. I'm using the Execute Ring over the legs because we're using 6 healers, and we were never, during progression, getting through to the last phase with everyone alive, so I was always pretty confident that we were going to have quite a long Execute phase and that the ring would then gain much more value than the legs. Talent selection, I'm taking Endless Rage, Double Time, Avatar, Bounding Stride, Frothing Berserker, Inner Rage, and Reckless Abandon, basically your standard single target talents. I'm not taking War Machine because since the hotfix to the owls, they're spawning less often, and you don't get enough uptime on it, in my opinion. And equally, same with Wrecking Ball. There's nowhere near enough adds up constantly. So Avatar is really your go-to. You could take War Paint instead of Bounding Stride if you find yourself really struggling to stay alive. It's probably more of like a throughput raw HPS issue more than anything, but you don't need the Bounding Stride. You're only really going to be using it to drop your Moonburn debuff, so it's an option. On pull, you're going to be doing your standard Moonglaive opener with Old War as your pot. We actually have Bloodlust on pull, which is quite nice for the Old War pot timings, but if you don't have Bloodlust on pull, you want to use your second pot with that Bloodlust later on. So charging in, dropping your Moonglaives, making sure that the boss is in position before you drop your Moonglaives, because you can get a little bit wonky sometimes. And the general kind of approach to this fight and getting decent DPS is going to be standing behind the boss when possible. And when I say when possible, I mean when it's not your turn to change on the astral plane. I'm on the red mark, so I am going to have to be in front of the boss sometimes, but it's just a necessary evil. And the other thing is to be trying to line your Odin's Fury and Moonglaves up with the ad. If you can do that, then you get some nice damage off. So you see there, I'm always trying to kind of stay on the side of the boss when I don't need to be on red, but you just really need to keep an eye on where the line across the room is coming so you don't get additional stacks for your raid. So stacking in that beam, and there's no real need to pop a personal or anything. You should have healing cooldowns going through. Popping Battlecry and Odin's Fury there because we're not coming up to a phase transition, just getting as much damage off as possible and avoiding the glaives as they go out to the ranged. Again, there's nothing much going on during phase one, as the glaives are always going to be coming from the central position, so they're quite easy to dodge, no need to look around too much. Now we're at 77% and I've got Avatar ready, but I'm only going to pop Battlecry because the transition is at 70%, and I want to save Avatar for when I have Moonglaves and Odin's Fury and the ad up, and you get some really good damage there. And I know that Battlecry is going to reset in time for that ad. So again, soaking the corporeal shot, just getting normal rotation on the boss. And now I'm going to hold CDs for a little bit until the ad spawns. It's worth holding there because obviously it's 2 targets. You got Odin's Fury, Avatar, Moonglaves, you get quite a lot of damage off. And I believe this is my second pot as well. So making sure I change on my colour and always keeping an eye out for where the glaives are coming across the room. Yeah, so second pot, glaives, 1 GCD, and then cooldowns, making sure that I'm actually focused targeting the ad as well. Unfortunately, I get Moonburn there, but I'm just going to try and get most of my cooldowns off and then use Leap at the right moment to drop my Moonburn. In fact, I've stayed on the ad the entire time there and popped Endless Rage instead, which is a fine option. So leaping out there to drop it quickly, come back in. There was only 2 stacks on the radio at the time, so you're quite safe to leap and charge back in without, giving everyone too much damage. And avoiding the glaives, there's no real advice I can give apart from just be good at it. Once they've gone past you, you can run towards them, and then they should be slightly easier to dodge. But if worse comes to worse, you just have to stop DPS. And now I'm just popping cooldowns again because there's no Moon Talon incoming soon, so you just want to keep pumping out those numbers, making sure you're on your colour to change, and trying to stay behind the boss when possible, but she does flip-flop around the room a lot. And again, I've got the Moonburn, so waiting for the raid stacks to drop, and I'm going to use Leap to get out, wait for it to drop again, and then charge back in. you don't want to be leaping across when there's already 3, 4, 5 stacks on the raid, otherwise you're just going to give out way too much damage. With phase 2, you're always going to be wanting to keep an eye on where the Spectral Tiger is, because that's where the glaives are going to come from. If you can remember to keep an eye on those, you're going to improve your survivability loads just by actively keeping an eye on it and making sure you're not having to kind of panic find it in the heat of the moment, because that's how you get hit by glaives. Now there's another, my cooldowns are coming off, and there's another Moon Talon coming soon, and I should save cooldowns, but what I've done is I've popped them early. That's just a flat out mistake on my behalf. You can actually hold them for about 20 seconds, and then once the Moon Talon spawns, yeah, use your cooldowns, get cleave on the ad. So bit of a mistake by myself, but it's not the end of the world. I think I still do alright in the end. And I've had loads of moon burns in this pull, which is not great, but again, leaping out to drop it, making sure the stacks drop and then charging back in, getting focus target on the Moon Talon, keeping an eye on where the Spectral Tiger is. You kind of want to always be facing the Spectral Tiger when you're in phase 2, because it's obviously the easiest way to see the glaives and easiest way to dodge them. And if you're comfortable to use your cooldowns in that kind of transition-y phase, then go for it, but if not, then just don't, and avoid the glaives. And I was quite lucky there, because Odin's Fury and Battlecry managed to come up whilst the ad was still alive, so although I used them early and missed out on the glaive damage, I got them back for when the ad was nearly dead, which, it's okay. Not as much bonus damage as it could have been, but... So transition into phase 3 here. Now phase 3, you're just going to want to be using your cooldowns until about kind of 22%. You want to make sure you have a battle cry ready for when you go into the execute phase, because obviously with the execute ring, we're going to want to be pumping out some big numbers, get some good juggernaut stacks. Always standing in the corporeal shot, but avoiding the glaive, trying to keep uptime on the boss. I think you'll lose the most damage in this fight by having to come off the boss in the glaive phases and the glaive storm phases, but if you need to do it to stay alive, you need to do it to stay alive. And again, there I've messed up my glaives. I've popped battle cry before dropping the glaives. It's not a massive DPS loss on single target, not getting that final tick in battle cry, so I mean, there's improvements that can be made. Heat of the moment kind of stuff, it's just you kind of get a bit carried away. So just keeping the uptime on the boss, keep going, always trying to stay behind it when possible. And nearly approaching the execute phase, which is where what we're looking forward to, basically. Dodging that one just about. So we're at 27% and I've got Battle Cry ready, and I think I'm going to just go ahead and use it. Yeah, so I've just used Battle Cry there and Odin's Fury, because I'm not really going to use Odin's Fury in sub 20% with the execute ring and massacre procs. And I know that, you know, 7% is quite a lot, so with 2 DPS dead and 6 healers, I'm definitely going to have enough time to reset Battle Cry ready for 20%. And I'm actually going to go into the 20% by not worrying about having too many Juggernaut stacks before my first avatar. I mean, we've still got about 2 minutes left on the fight according to the time to kill timer on the top right, so I'm pretty confident that I'll have another avatar at least. So I'm going to drop all my rage into executes, wait for glaives, drop the glaives as well, soaking that first and just avoiding the glaives because I want to be sure to get my full use of avatar. I don't want to have to like run out of melee range or something ridiculous. And it's quite a good job I held them because I've got Moonburn, so I'm actually going to have to drop my Moonburn and pop the cooldown there to try and tank some of the damage. Now I've gone cooldown, so I've gone in with a reasonable amount of stacks, and I know I'm still going to get an avatar back, so it doesn't matter that I held them a little bit longer and not using them immediately at 20%. So standard kind of massacre rotation outside of cooldowns is 2 executes massacre, 2 executes massacre. But whilst cooldowns are up, I'm just going to try and pump as many executes with Battle Cry up as possible. So it'll be 3 executes and then maintaining Enrage with Bloodthirst. Again, just always 2 executes massacre, 2 executes massacre, making sure to dodge the glaives. And just really trying to not drop them Juggernaut stacks and keep Enrage up. And the timing's worked out really good here. We're kind of coming up to 5%, and I've got 15 seconds left on Avatar. Battle cry's up, but obviously I'm going to hold it because I know that Avatar is going to be back for the last 5%. Having to bloodthirst there as well just to get a bit of rage, and then luckily back cooldown's ready for the kill, which is almost as good as it can be. I think I ended up with like 5 seconds left on Avatar, so it had been 5 seconds longer might have been better, but really solid execute phase in the end, and finishing on what, 1.24 million DPS, which I'm pretty happy with. So yeah, the general idea with this one is to try not to get parried too much, try and keep good uptime during the glaive phases if you can avoid the glaives competently, and using the execute ring if you're going to get a nice long execute phase like that. I think I got up to 56 juggernaut stacks, which is pretty good during progression. If you go in kind of 5 healers and your DPS aren't going to be dead, then the legs might give you better DPS overall. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Desolate Host. Cheers.